and we have our speakers from very different and unique background. So this webinar is basically on COVID-19 related uh, projects. It's a part of Y4CAP project, which we are currently doing. So the topic for this webinar is COVID-19 related response upholds young people's human right, and the duration would be 75 minutes. As part of its aim in supporting 17 SDG goals, the Youth for Climate Action Project resolved to host a webinar on human rights and youths, highlighting how they are affected or are affected by the narrative of inequality during COVID-19 situation. So with us, we have Naveen Gautam. Uh, Mr. Naveen Gautam is from India. He's from New Delhi. He is a lawyer by profession, a human rights advocate, and he has been fighting for human rights for past 6 years now. We have Mr. Akuila. Mr. Aquila is a human rights officer at United Nations Office of High Commissioner of Human Rights, UNOHCHR in the Pacific. He has worked for United Nations Development Program, UNDP, as a senior coordinator for the REACH project with effective governance team, a teacher by profession as well. He had also spent a number of years working in the Ministry of Youth and Sports, Fiji. He has a master's in community development from Yosan University, South Korea. Next, we have Mr. Brian. Mr. Brian is a trained economist and a public health scientist from Makerere University in Uganda, and he has studied at Stanford University in San Francisco, USA. Brian has also dedicated the largest part of his 19 years career promoting access to sexual reproductive health and rights for adolescents and youth in both development and humanitarian contexts. As a technical specialist with UNFPA Pacific, he supports 14 countries in the region to position adolescents and youth and rights with focus on advancing comprehensive sexuality education and youth-friendly SHR information and service. He is motivated by young people taking reins of decision making in all aspects of improving their lives and well-being. So to start off, I would like to invite Mr. Akuila. Around the world, youths are facing a widely array of challenges, ranging from access to basic services, increasing and vulnerability. Mr. Aquila, can you hear me?
Yeah. Can you hear me?
Yes, yes, loud and clear, sir. Thank you for joining in, Mr. Aquila.
Yeah. Thank you so much for the wonderful introduction. I'm sorry, colleagues, I will off my video. I guess the internet here sometimes is not very favorable. So I'll just off my video in order for me to then have more proper connection in order me not to lose out in this wonderful opportunity. Thank you again, Pallawish and Youth for CAP organization, a youth-led organization, for this wonderful opportunity. So now I will go and dive in. I know we do not have much time so that we can have more discussions on the thematic areas that we have. While I off my video, and then I will just share with you a presentation on the, just so that I can be guided with discussions today. I'm very fond of speaking off topic. This is the reason why I've just prepared some slides just to guide me. And also, most of the time I go off time as well. So Pallawish, please just tell me if I'm going overboard or if I just didn't do the time that I'm supposed to do. So I thought of perhaps stating the questions that I have for me as the first speaker. And I was thinking maybe I just set the scene for, people like Naveen from India, who also are doing great work on the ground, and even also Brian, who is also a mentor of mine. We tend to mentor each other. He's a chair for the Pacific Youth Interagency, or the Working Group for Youth here in the Pacific, the UN Pacific platform. The question is, what are examples of efficient responses grounded in human rights that contribute to long-term sustainable recovery and the achievement of SDG? When we are discussing human rights and SDG, there is, as mentioned by our moderator for today, the issues of the 17 goals, the issues of how do we streamline development agendas, how do we see that the human rights-based approach are inculcated into the development agenda, and of course, the crisis situation that the global village is now facing. I thought at the outset that we just, I'm not too familiar with how best we know the human rights principles. So I thought of just at the outset, show to us just a few basics principles of human rights. And then, after that, we can then discuss further with the practicality on the ground. Human rights is very universal. So here I'm very happy that we, even through the introduction, I could see that we have participants from around the world. So, when you're talking about human rights, there's no specific human right that is applicable only to Fiji, and it's not applicable to India or Nepal for that matter. So universal meaning it goes across the board in terms of human rights application. It is inherent, everybody as we born, will inherit human rights, and of course, interdependent and interrelated. Here we are talking about COVID-19 situation, and later on there'll be discussions about climate change. So, when you're talking about the right to food and the freedom for movement, you cannot work on just one of them and eliminate the other. So, it is interrelated, it is interconnected. And also, you cannot divide. You cannot divide the rights per se, when you're talking about the basic principles or fundamentals of human rights. Also very important that, in human rights, it's all about human dignity. I've always mentioned this, once you have human dignity, the respect for other people, then 50% of human rights practicality has already been achieved. If you know human dignity, the pure moral value of respecting one another, irrespective of sex, gender, religion, and of course that inculcates with non-discrimination, and also with international treaties, international laws, also with legal frameworks regionally, nationally. Human rights is also legally granted for that matter. When you're talking about human rights and bringing in the SDG discussions, I thought of just highlighting the Secretary General policy brief on human rights during this crisis situation of COVID-19 with regards to the policy message that the SG for UN particularly mentioned for human rights. One, protecting livelihood, especially now during the crisis situation. We need to see livelihood opportunity being addressed during this crisis situation. A second part which the Secretary General through the policy brief mentioned about discrimination. Again, going back to the values, the principles of human rights, there is no place for discrimination during crisis situation or during the COVID-19 situation. There shouldn't be inequality, discrimination, exclusion when we are in the crisis situation or the COVID-19 situation that is now prevalent around the world. So we should see that everybody is very inclusive. Inclusive participation is very important. Involving everyone during the response is also very important during this time of crisis. And The fourth point the Secretary General was speaking on was the threat is the virus and not the people. Now, as you know, the increasing numbers of positive cases in the COVID-19, we tend to forget that it is the virus that we're trying to beat here. We really need to work together as colleagues, as comrades, as brothers and sisters, to try and beat this virus that is now prevalent around the world. And then, you know, in terms of recover, we need to recover better. This takes me back to the Human Rights Day 2020 last year, where the theme for Human Rights Day was building back better. You know, how do we build back better during crisis situation? How do we work together in all areas of national structures, whether it be local, in the community, or in respective regions around the country, or if it's national level, or even when it comes to regionalism in terms of the different countries in specific region, or together in the global village, how can we build back better? Sharing best practices, learning from each other. This is very important in this crisis situation. And also working together. We cannot work in isolation when we are now having this crisis situation. Everybody needs to work together. We need to see the issues of marginalized, vulnerable people in the community, in isolation, to try and solve the situation. Us youth, we cannot isolation, so we need to work together in order to see that we are addressing the issues during COVID-19, which is now a crisis situation. As we move along, as we develop, Secretary General also issued a call for action. And this call for action is really a leap from the discussions of the policy brief, but now more into action-based issues, whereby one, the right at the core of sustainable development. I brought this first point in, which was also part of the SG's call to action, because it hits the question that is posed to me by Pallawish. I had to do a bit of research through when I received the question from the organizers, the moderator. So, again, it talks about making, the rights as the core of sustainable development. We're in a crisis situation. Once we recover, we need to see that rights is part and parcel or the core of development issues, which is also pinned in the SDG, as Pallawish had mentioned at the beginning, the introduction of this dialogue. Number two, rights in the time of crisis. Yes, it's very important that rights plays a vital role when we are in crisis. It had happened in the World War II, and this is the only way this is where the birth of human rights started off. So, in crisis situation, people tend to realize the dignity, tend to realize human dignity in terms of human rights, values, understanding, principles when it comes to crisis situation. Also, one thing that SG spoke on very clearly was gender equality and equal rights for women. As you know, there's a lot of stringent laws been put forth by health officials, the framework around it. But then again, we should look at it also in the community. Domestic violence is something that is very high in the Pacific. So, perpetrators and victims are being left together in one particular location. So, these are human rights issues that we need to address. Not only human rights practitioners, but also the community. We together need to address this. And then you have public participation in civil space. This is also an issue in terms of crisis situation, where you see a string in the participation of civic space. It's a time where human rights defenders stand up and defend the community right. What is happening, public participation, and also looking at the rights holder and rights bearer mode, in where the rights holder we need to demand our rights, and rights barrier in the most regards the state, where they need to fulfill and protect and promote rights in terms of national development. The right of future generation is also one thing that he spoke on. When you're talking about future generation, it is us, how we change the mindset, how do we capacity build, empower, motivate, which also inculcates with collective actions. And this is the reason, I guess, why the host for this event is doing this. We need to come together. We need to come together in a collective mood in order for us to see that actions, we are sharing best practices, we are sharing lessons learned. What is happening here in the Pacific might not be happening in India and Nepal, or what is happening in Nepal in India might not be happening in the Pacific. So this type of platform is very important for us to share amongst each other on way we could move forward. And then, of course, new frontiers of human rights. This is where we have the digital age. Again, thanks to the host and also the moderator, the organization that has hosted this, using this digital platform like Zoom. It helps us to discuss human rights issues now that we have the social distancing and other issues with regards to with the COVID-19 situation. Moving on, I also thought of bringing in, I will also send the link. There is also OHCHR guidance note for COVID-19. And I thought when you're looking at the guidance note, this is specifically targeting youth for that matter. COVID-19 is a test of, at the outset, a general summary of the note for COVID-19 for OHCHR. It states that, COVID-19 is a test of society, of government, of community, of individual. That means everyone. It is a time for solidarity and cooperation to tackle the virus and mitigate the effect, often unintended, of the measures designed to halt the spread of COVID-19. Respect for human rights across the spectrum, including economic. There's a lot of economic, social, and cultural issues, civil and political rights. Again, moving into the issues of treaty bodies, and treaties that are ratified by governments, by state, and also the fundamental to success of public health response and recovery from the pandemic. And specifically, it hits also youth for that matter, where you have features of employment, education and training, youth unemployment rate, even youth unemployment rate was very high before the pandemic. And then, the global financial crisis in 2007. So, COVID-19 at the last point has really added to all these struggles and challenges that we already have. States should now ensure efforts to mitigate and address the impact of pandemic for the provisions of young people, a specific situation, upholding their rights, including decent jobs and social protection. OHCHR sees that it is very high on the agenda. By concluding, I thought of just bringing back the High Commissioner for OHCHR. She mentioned during the Human Rights Day last year, and I will just read from here, that the medical vaccines that are now developed will hopefully and eventually deliver us from COVID-19, a bit not for many months yet. So, we're still waiting for COVID vaccination to come around. Some have gone through the second round, some are still waiting, some are still waiting for the first round. But they are not, they will not prevent or cure socio-economic ravage that have resulted from the pandemic and aided its spread. And then she went on to further state the name of the vaccine that we have, even from World War II, is human rights. Its a core ingredients, it embeds the Universal Declaration of Human Rights, which brings fairness, impartiality, and justice. I'll stop there for now and then hand it over. I know that there will be time for questions and answer. I will now hand it back over to you, Pallawish, as the moderator. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Aquila, for that beautiful note and plus giving some examples of efficient response grounded in human rights and some of the contributions that long-term sustainability, recovery, and achievements of SDGs are. Thank you very much for your lovely presentation, sir. And now we will be moving to our next speaker. We have Mr. Brian Kironde, representative from UNFPA Pacific. So the question to you, Mr. Brian, what are the specific challenges and barriers do you see youth are facing due to limitation of existing systems in promoting sexual reproductive health rights during the pandemic? And recently, I think there was a survey done by UNFP regarding Pacific Youth Survey for Human Rights. So, Mr. Brian, are you there?
Yes, I'm here. Yes, I'm
Uh,
hearing.
Thank you. That's your question, and we would like to have
Okay.
some of the examples and what was this specific youth survey about.
Okay. Thank you very much, Pallawish. And good evening, good morning, good afternoon, everyone, wherever you are. I first of all want to thank the organizers for this wonderful webinar. The Youth for Action, Climate Action Change, OHCHR, and our other partners. We've had quite talking about the human rights and within the context of COVID-19. Sexual reproductive health is one of the rights under Universal Declaration of Right to Health and Right to Information and Services. Equally, young people, for us, this is an important aspect of the well-being of youth. Because without sexual reproductive health and rights, then they are bound to have very many challenges socially that may impede their growth, their development, and eventual transition into adulthood to live a meaningful life. So before I come directly to the outcome of the survey that you asked me to speak to, Pallawish, I just thought I should share some information from the global level, Asia Pacific region, and also in the Pacific related to what COVID-19 has done and what it means for sexual reproductive health and rights for young people. Quoting the most recent WHO global report on the Pulse survey and continuity of essential health services during the pandemic, the report mentions that 68% of countries through the health system cannot continue or had disrupted provision of family planning and contraceptive services. 61% disruption in treatment for mental health disorder, 56% in antenatal care, and 61% in facility-based services. Now, if you are careful to listen all to those services that I just mentioned that the health system is supposed to provide, these are largely consumed by young people. That means in the Asian Pacific region, where you have majority of young people going into unwanted pregnancies because of merely having sexual intercourse by nature of growing up and experiencing adolescence, tend to require or need to have access to family planning. But we are seeing from this report that these services are being disrupted. We know that the report further on mentions that the main reasons for disruption are caused because a lot of attention and resources from the government ministries of health is moving away from the provision of these essential sexual reproductive health services towards COVID prevention and response. An example, in Fiji right now, we're in a lockdown, and currently all the energy, all these resources of the Ministry of Health is directed towards COVID. So that means when it comes to maternal health, young people who are pregnant, who want to access these services, they can't easily get these services. When it comes to those who want to access family planning, like contraceptives, like condoms, they can't easily access these services. Okay. So we also know that to break this down a little bit further, and closer to home in the Asia Pacific region, for 15 to 19-year-olds, reporting at least one serious problem in terms of accessing healthcare. In the Pacific, because of COVID-19, we have almost 90%, at least between 15 to 19 years old, are reporting having serious challenges accessing healthcare. In South Asia, it's 66%. In Southeastern Asia, it's 57.9%. This is all coming from the most recent 2020 report called the My Body is My Body, My Life is My Life from UNFPA. And what we tend to see is that young people are grossly affected by the shift in or the disruption caused by COVID-19. The focus has moved to COVID-19, lockdowns and restrictions, where you know how hard it is for young people to access services, even when things are normal, because the fact that they will be judged when they go to a health facility, they want to be a service provider who's friendly to welcome them. This is now being escalated because of the current situation. Now imagine a scenario with COVID-19, the lockdowns, it's even much harder for them. The supplies, getting shipment of contraceptives to the countries is being disrupted because your borders are closed. So you can't get cargo into, you can't get, most of these countries need these drugs. They need the contraceptives, from pills, from injections to condoms. All these cannot be accessed. Okay. In a report done in 2009 by Anne Blank and others, called The Patterns and Trends in Adolescent and Contraceptive Use and Discontinuation, this was a global report. I picked out 3 countries in our region that showed a discontinuation, or of use of family planning. And the figures are a bit worrying. For those young people between the ages 15 to 19, we had in Philippines alone, 15% of them discontinued using family planning, 8.5% in India, and 8.1%. But these are for other reasons other than the desire to get pregnant. Okay, this could be like availability of these services and access. And what does that mean if they are discontinuing use of family planning? It means that there's an increased likelihood of getting unwanted pregnancies. Now, this situation was in 2009, and this and has been going on for the last couple of years. Now, we only assume that with COVID-19, this has doubled or even tripled. Okay, so because of the issues of access that I just mentioned and blocking of access of services, we believe that this has just been escalated. If I talk about those who are most affected, young people are not homogeneous. We have young people who are from the urban areas, young people from the rural areas. They have disproportionate access issues. Young people who are stigmatized by sexual orientation. Young people, for instance, who belong to the LGBTQI sexual minority groupings. In the normal situation, it's harder for them to access services. Young people with disabilities. Now, COVID-19 just escalates their stigma and discrimination to access this sexual reproductive health, both information and services. So this has not helped the situation. So I want to now bring it a little bit closer to the Pacific, and if you allow me, share with you just 2 slides from our survey that we did last year in 2020. So, okay. All right. So this survey was done last year. The moment COVID-19 hit, we immediately, UNFPA embarked on doing a youth survey on the impact of COVID-19 on young people. So the process in itself was very unique in nature. Okay, it was swift. We didn't go through the usual modalities of doing a real comprehensive survey. So it may not be your usual, so don't ask me questions on how representative it was. No, it wasn't. We just did we used the term quick and dirty, okay, because we needed information. It was very participatory. We had members of the UN Interagency Working Group that Akuila just mentioned, that we work together with different agencies, including OHCHR, who are very supportive in coordinating and helping young people get involved. It was very inclusive. We reached all types of young people, those that are in and out of school, diverse sexual orientation, and and so many other groups that I mentioned. And we use a lot of social media to popularize it, and we work with different partners at regional and country level. The most important thing here to know is that we reached over 1,463 young people from the 12 Pacific countries, okay? And 6% of them were identified or identified themselves as persons with disabilities. We use a survey market tool, which is online. So we are asking young people to identify their demographic grouping. Some chose 6% disabilities and 4% as sexual minorities. Okay, we had also information on their gender, education, and majority were unemployed. Most of them were in school, and we had a fairly representative age group of 15 to 24, and we had more females. But this is what we found out, okay? We found out that young people are really showing the way within this context of COVID-19. They are taking major precautions to stay infection-free and healthy. They are listening to the message that is coming out from health ministries, from the government, and they're not only stopping there, they are going an extra mile. 58% of them told us that they are providing accurate information to their friends and family. So this changes the mindset of looking at young people as a liability, but rather as an asset. How are we working with young people to reach other young people? Almost 20%, reported they are role models for others. The 27% reported that their lives have changed for worse. This is worrying. Their lives have changed for worse. That means COVID-19 has impacted negatively on their lives. And almost 40% are more vulnerable because of being young people to the impact and the effect of COVID-19, social and economic. All right, those that lost jobs or their parents lost jobs were around 5%, and their parents or guardians 10%. And then 9% recorded having minimal access to regular health services. Okay, but that was somewhere in June 2020. The situation definitely has changed by now. Okay, so the survey findings told us that 80% of these young people identified that family was core in supporting, followed by friends, 48% in supporting them to cope with the impact of the pandemic. 60%, said they needed, basic stuff, food, medicines, including contraceptives in the aspect of sexual reproductive health. And 65% asked for accurate information on public channels. This is the most interesting finding. When we asked them, how do you want us to reach you? Majority of them said they prefer to be reached through social media, digital platforms. Majority, we had almost 90%, and very few, 20% asked for in-person contribution. Okay, so as I come to conclusion, okay, I'll just say this before talking about the how they want to be reached. We are talking about a shift in SRH and other rights of young people from the traditional way to the digital age. In the digital age, there are also potential challenges that we must anticipate, okay? So there are potential related harms to sexual reproductive health out of the digital media, and they can be in three forms: through contact, through conduct, and through content. And I want to speak to this very importantly. Through contact, there's definitely harms related to online sexual grooming. This is happening. When young people get into contact with digital platforms, social media, there are some sites where there is online sexual grooming. There is online sexual abuse and exploitation, which happens. And when it comes to conduct, discrimination and cyberbullying, these are not, most young people will tell you cyberbullying happens. Non-consensual sharing of sects, sexual text. You, for instance, have a partner and you're sharing sex text on sex, and your partner shares it with someone else. That's a form of violation of their sexual rights. Okay, revenge pornography. Using pornography as a tool to revenge against another. It could start from one person, those in a relationship, or it could extend to their peers. And when it comes to content, unwelcome exposure to sexually explicit content, young people being exposed to explicit content that they have not solicited, inappropriate or harmful content, and misinformation. These are happening. We don't have enough evidence on the gravity or extent of this, but we know there are the potential sexual reproductive health related harms of the digital media, which 95% of young people prefer to be reached. So this is an important aspect of this discussion today. This is the only way we ever want to be reached, but there are issues to think about, and we need to be able to address that if we're talking about their sexual reproductive health rights. So I want to stop here and say that, together it's possible. We've leveraged resources through the survey that we did. It was done in a timely way. We can also be able to work together, through the different partners, civil society, in the UN, and academia, to be able to push through the issues of young people. For young people, first of all, to be aware of them, take responsible action, and get the remedial support to help them cope with the challenges of their sexual reproductive health. So I want to stop there for now, and thank you so much for the opportunity that has been given to me. And I'm going to stay around if there are any questions. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Brian. That's a very healthy presentation that you have presented, and being so brief uh, about the Pacific Youth Survey, and plus giving the facts and the figures together. Thank you very much. To all the participants, if you have any questions, please leave them on the chat box. We will get back to it during our Q&A session. Next of all, we would like to call Mr. Naveen Gautam. He is from India. He is by professionally a lawyer, a human rights lawyer, and an activist who has been fighting for human rights justice for more than 7 years now. Mr. Naveen.
Hello. Hi. Uh, am I audible, Pallawish?
Yes, yes.
Okay. Thank you, Pallawish, for calling me over here, and it's a great opportunity. Just got the information on the short notice, but I'm very happy to be part of this event, and big thanks to Pallawish. I would strongly agree with whatever has been spoken about by the last two speakers, be it Mr. Akuila or Mr. Brian, and to some extent, the same issues are applicable in the country, the India, as well as my friend from Nepal would also agree upon this. Of course, the human rights are universal; they cannot be changed, they cannot be altered with. But in our country, it's a different situation altogether. As in, people are facing discrimination over here, but the situation is all different altogether, as we have different versions of discrimination over here. And like we talk about religion, and it's also in the news recently. People are discriminated on the basis of religion. People are discriminated on the basis of gender, which is the universal thing. And another thing which is actually prevalent in the country and has affected the country's socioeconomic condition is caste. That is the form of race. That's a form of racism in the country, and it's very complicated. I was just having a discussion with Pallawish a day before itself. It's very complicated, and people are discriminated. They are being murdered. They are being raped, and they are not being provided their basic socioeconomic rights just because they belong to a specific section of the society. Uh, so one of the communities who faces such kind of discrimination are the Dalits, and they are known as Dalits in the country. If you just Google it on the internet, you'll find about Dalits, and you should read about the situation. These people are facing discrimination since thousands and the thousands of years, and people came, government came, Britishers, they came, they ruled. Then of course our own government came, but nothing actually happened. They form around 16.6% of the Indian population. And even after having such a majority, they are being kept away, they are being denied from their basic human rights. And in context of India, the human rights remain the same, but we have been granted fundamental rights. And these fundamental rights are right to equality, right against discrimination, right against right to free speech and expression, and then right against labor, right against, sorry, not labor, right against bonded labor. And most importantly, the right which forms the basis, right to life in the UDHR also, and other covenants also, the right to life has also been granted, but there has been a specific right granted in the Indian Constitution, that is right against untouchability. Now, imagine the situation wherein there is a specific right against untouchability. That means how these Dalits have been facing the situation, how they have been called as untouchables, and they are not people not supposed to talk to them because they're untouchables. Now, I'm directly coming to the situation of COVID, how COVID has impacted their life majorly. Uh, because they have been considered as untouchables, because Dalits have been considered as untouchables, most of the government schemes which came during the COVID, and mostly the youth who were impacted, most of the government scheme came during the COVID as a rescue, as a relief, couldn't even reach the basic the population. More than 40 to I'll give you specific data. So basically, yeah, 45.6% of the Dalit families, the communities, the marginalized, didn't even receive the basic benefits which they were supposed to receive. They didn't receive the healthcare benefits. They couldn't receive the food they are entitled to. And this all has happened in past 1 year. Secondly, in past 1 year, the cases of atrocities against these Dalits during the COVID pandemic has increased. They are being killed, they are being raped. And the Indian justice system, along with the Indian medical system, to some extent, has lost its pace in this long run. And that's also a reason why I called COVID as not a destroyer, but as an exposure of the harsh realities. As an exposure, as in the government was actually not prepared, the state was not prepared, and that's also something which is a major loophole regarding this. I think this is one of the biggest problem, and my friend from Nepal would also agree on this issue of caste and how this caste has come up as an additional factor as a destroyer along with the COVID for a few specific communities. Thirdly, I have been working on sustainable goal number 16, sustainable goal number 5, and sustainable goal number 8.1. All of us must have been witnessing the present situation in the country, how medical infrastructure has totally collapsed. Last year, the situation was same when lakhs and lakhs of laborers migrated from the industrial sites to their homes, and most of them died on their own while they were on their way to their homes because they didn't have proper transportation. And imagine 1400 kilometers they were traveling just on their foot. And most of them actually succumbed in the way itself. So now imagine most of the migrant laborers were either Dalits or belonged to the marginalized communities. Thirdly, the marginalized communities, especially the women belonging to these communities, have been facing triple discrimination. Firstly, because they belong to a specific religion. Secondly, they belong to a specific caste. And then finally, it's because of their gender. The patriarchy in Indian country and across the world is, I don't think I need to talk about this, how strong it is and how negative impact it is bringing in. But in India, the situation is altogether different also because the women from these communities have been facing domestic violence. There have been a number of cases of domestic violence and sexual assault. And these women in past 1 year during the COVID pandemic, this has also increased to a great manner. And then, of course, I won't take much of the time. I'll quickly finish it up. There is a problem with access to information also because most of the people in the grassroots, most of the people in the rural areas, and especially these communities, they don't have access to information, what they're supposed to do and how they're supposed to do. I'll tell you another data wherein more than 50 to 60% of the people, especially from these communities, these marginalized communities known as Dalit and Adivasis, didn't even know the basic policy, the basic schemes which existed, which came up during the COVID pandemic. And for next 6 and 7 months, I mean, this came during the March 2020, and till November 2020, most of the people didn't know that there are schemes also, there are benefits also which have come up to protect the rights of the people, especially the marginalized. Such lower is the level of information, the awareness level amongst the marginalized and the oppressed sections, especially in the rural areas. Thirdly, I would straight away come to the conclusion. Also, a few suggestions is we need youth. Sorry, we need youth to be part of the policy making. And I was just thinking, how do we do that? We need representation from the grassroots. Me sitting in a AC chamber, me working in some AC office, some sophisticated office cannot bring a change just by going to the grassroots areas and rural areas. We need people from the rural areas. We need people from the grassroots areas who can actually become a change agent. And once they become a change agent, we can have an approach which is known as bottom to top approach. Presently, the policies are being made by people who are sitting in the parliament for the people who are living in the grassroots communities, marginalized communities, and patient from those who are actually living in the marginalized communities, who are part of the marginalized communities, who are living in a rural areas, and they are being represented by someone who understands their issues. And the person who understands their issues will be the person who belongs to them. But we don't have sufficient representation. Access to information is a problem because we are having policies and there is no major consultation with the people who are actually in need of them. So we need change agents. Change agent as in, we need people from the marginalized communities, we need people from the rural areas, and we need to ask them that what is the proper way to ensure that you have right and access to proper information as well as entitlements. Fourthly, I would like to add that we need to digitalize the traditional ways. Digitalizing the traditional ways means, I'll give you an example wherein there is an indigenous community there in a place known as Bastar in our country, in India. So whenever they get an information, they send a person along with a team, 4 or 5 members, to some other village, to some other rural area. And over there, they present the information through plays, through stories, through announcements, through songs. What we need to do is, this is still happening, but most of the rural villages, rural areas are still not able to have these, don't have access to such information. What we need to do is, we need to digitalize these traditional ways. We need to bring it to the forefront. How do we bring it to the knowledge, to the main world, and how we can further improvise upon these situations, because these ways, traditional ways, are very strong, and these have very major impact on the mindset of the people at the grassroots. So these are certain suggestions which I would come up with. And finally, I have few more, but because of paucity of time, I will stop my presentation over there. And I'm very sorry I don't have a PowerPoint, Pallawish, but this is what I wanted to add. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Naveen, for giving us such a brief information about misinformation, how people are guided into wrong ways during this COVID-19 pandemic, and plus to access and some solutions that you have given. Thank you very much for your time, Naveen. I would like to call upon our next speaker, which is Mr. Anish Shrestha. He is from Nepal. Mr. Anish is a youth advocate belonging to a Newar indigenous community of Nepal, very actively engaged and representing indigenous people and youth voices for more than 8 years. He has been active in human rights, the environment, climate change, and youth issues. He is presently working as an executive director of YFeed Foundation and partnership coordinator for SAARC Youth Platform SYP. Thank you very much, sir, for joining us, Mr. Anish. Our question to you is understanding the specific, or rather, I could say one of the 4 people that felt misinformation, as Naveen has already highlighted few of the points. Our question to you is, what are some solutions that you suggest that our nation as a whole is, or rather, I could say the globe, is promoting the youth access to information, especially among vulnerable youth groups in remote areas and rural areas. So what are some solutions?
Thank you, sir, for your question. So I think it's very important, first of all, to make youth more organized in those areas so that they can have enough information and access to resources that they will need to know about the matters that particularly affects them. So, so that they will be able to engage. So most prominent problem we have, or prominent problem we have, is like the lack of the organizing of proper organizing in those rural areas and youth, especially among the youth. So I think we need to first get them awareness and need to empower them. So on how we can empower, or how and what is the necessity of that area, and what is the need to be organized, and how young peoples can be organized, and that they can lead a problem, and they could lead a solution towards it in their area. I think this is the most important thing. At the moment, youth are not being able to know their rights, not know their issues, that local community, more organized and more excessive manner, so that it would be a more good intervention, to a more targeted intervention. Because sometimes what we do is like the young people, so they are often confused with a lot of things and not able to really focus on what the matter really is, and how as a young people they can involve, and then they can contribute. I think so we need to first look at those that issue and need to get them organized. So once organized, you will have a more connection, more networking, more opportunities, so that you will have a proper information among yourself. It's not only the role of one particular person to do it. So if we have a group leading and a group working on the matter, so it will be easy for the group to rely on each other, help and support each other. So I think this is a issue at the moment, and especially as we talk about the COVID-19 crisis, I think it's a very global problem as well as a very local problem. So I mean to say, like, the effect are in different dimensions, in different levels. So global level, of course, there's a lot of bondages, lot of lack of resources, lot of other financial and other challenges that the COVID-19 pandemic has brought. But in the local level, health systems are nearly dying. Not only people's dying, the health systems are also collapsing and dying. So what I have been observing through the past few days in Nepal and India, so it's been a very catastrophic situation. So there's no oxygen, there's no hospital beds, no proper doctors and medical resources for the help in the time that we need it the most. So I think as a young people, we need to observe, not only observe, but also monitor, and also to analyze the situation and why and what went wrong. And we need to organize ourselves and to respond to this with whatever resources and whatever way we can, from the awareness raising to advocacy to our leaders and to our politicians, to make them accountable. I think this is the most important thing, and we are, in behind. So it's, as I said, it's not about a single person or the individual to act, but as also them to. So I think we need to see these as challenges, but also to opportunities to not only to address the COVID-19 pandemic, but also to build back better. That if this kind of disasters, this kind of health emergencies, and this kind of diseases strike back, we will be able and will have the more capacity to deal it with in a manner that that will sustain the livelihood as well as sustain our world in the future. So I think we need to look at those things, and as a young people, as a youth, especially from the global south and the Asia Pacific, I think we have these problems as well as opportunities, and as well as the leadership capacity to deal with. So we just need to initiate, and we just need to get more support, and we just need more in an organized way. So I think I call upon all the stakeholders, at the moment, to listen to the young peoples, to know about the young peoples working on the ground, and to support them. So I think this is the most timely situation, or the timely time, so that we act. So we need to find a common way to work, and this is a common time to work. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Anish. That was really great, giving out some solutions of misinformation, as continuing Mr. Naveen's question. Next up, since we are running a bit short on time, we would like to call upon our final speaker, which is Mr. Omar Faruk. He is from Bangladesh and a youth advocate for Youth Voices for Climate Action. He is from Bangladesh, as I mentioned. He started humanitarian work in 2017 to document end crisis. He is also a journalist, and he started his volunteer work in 2011. Omar is also involved with Bangladesh NGOs, Young Powers, many organizations that is currently based in Bangladesh. And on his account of work, he has been given chance previously and had opportunity to represent Asia Pacific Forum on Sustainable Development, youth forums organized by Aero, an international seminar on climate issues in Calcutta, India, and many more on his portfolio. Mr. Omar, thank you for joining us.
Hello everyone. Good afternoon in Bangladesh. Today is Eid al-Fitr in Bangladesh. So at first, says everyone to Eid Mubarak. I hope all of you are well by the grace of Almighty Allah. Here I have seen that lots of youth and specialists from different countries. So very glad to know and also hearing some voices from different platform and different experts who are connected in this webinar. So at first I would like to thank Pallawish. He's also my colleague. We are very different from each others, but we are living so many distant countries, like Pallawish from Fiji, I'm from Bangladesh. So I think that in this COVID-19 pandemic situation is very helpful for us to connect local youth to international youth. This is one of the examples that I am connected here from Bangladesh. Pallawish connected from Fiji. So it's very easy to understand that we are connected in virtually, and we can talk about different issues at this pandemic time, and we can also implement so many projects virtually and also offline activities. So I also a founder of Weekend. Basically, Weekend is a youth lead platform. Here we are focusing on climate issues. So I think that climate is also one of the part of human trafficking issues and also climate issues. That's why it's all about climate related. That's why we are focusing on both of these issues, like human trafficking issues and child marriage issues. As I live in Cox's Bazar in Bangladesh, I think that human trafficking issues is very important, and also child marriage issues is very essential to know and aware to the people. That's why I am here, and Pallawish give me the opportunity to talk in front of you. I'm not good at English, but I try to speak in English because as you all are internationally connected, and as I live in Bangladesh, my mother tongue is Bengali. I know well Bengali, so I also add something that we are conducting so many live sessions. Here we are talking about women empowerment issues, youth leadership issues, and also climate issues. So all of these issues is very important to know every year, because if anyone youth can connect it each others or want to share something to the public places, you must need to know about sustainable development goals, because it's if you want to work in society, also cities, in also national levels or also international levels, first we need to know SDG, like sustainable development goals. So we try to award and also give the some opportunities to the local youth in Cox's Bazar and also Chittagong division in Bangladesh to learn and how can they know about SDG. In this pandemic time, I have seen another thing that as I live in Cox's Bazar Shodar Upazila in Bangladesh, it's a village. So here I have seen that some people cannot some people cannot understand that what we are using language in mobile phone or television, because they are using local language like Chittagonian language in Bangladesh. So it's very hard to understand that what we are talking in English, what we are talking in television, what we are talking in public place, what we are talking in social platform. It's very tough to understand that what actually we are talking. So we try to solve this problem, and we are using local language, and we translate English to local language, and we award to the local people about COVID-19 pandemic, because someone know that what is COVID-19. Some like our villages people don't know about COVID-19 pandemic situations, but they realize that COVID-19 pandemic is going on with us, but we don't need to know more something like that. They understand it, but we try to raise awareness to the local people like villages people. And also I have seen that some villages people are doing many excellent work at this pandemic time. Some people, some youth are taking initiative like awareness initiative, like a virtually awareness campaign, art exhibitions. It's all about COVID-19 pandemic situations related. I think that all of you and all of Bangladeshi youth are very engaged at this pandemic time, and there are working so many types to recover the COVID-19 pandemic situations. I think that sometimes we are facing some difficulties, as I am from villages. So if I think that how can one village's youth can connect socially, like virtually platform, if they don't have any data, if they don't have access internet, if they don't have Wi-Fi good connection, how can I join this webinar sessions? So that's why villages peoples and cities people should depend at this pandemic, because some if I get the opportunity to talk about with all of you guys, but I don't have good net connection, that's why I cannot connect it like this conference or seminar like that. So it's one of the things that we are facing some difficulties to connect each others virtually. Another thing that some youth are facing very difficulties times, because the schools are locked, schools closed, everything is closed in Bangladesh in 2022 still now. So we have a long gap in education sector. I don't know how can we recover this problem, how can we solve this problem, but we need to connect it to the youth and also students in virtually. But when we are implemented these types of work in Bangladesh, we are facing some difficulties like that. I can connect it all cities youth people in virtually, but I cannot connect it all of villages people in this online platform, because they don't have Android phone, they don't have smartphone, they don't have good connection. So it's another thing that we need to raise awareness to the peoples and students that how can we connect it to them offline activities like that. How can we also connect it local youth and also students in a platform to teach every subject, every sectors. So we people are doing that. We people make free lessons in Bangladesh, and we have also one kids school in online and one is higher level. So both of these schools in online. So in every week we uploaded 2 videos, one in English, another is Bengali. Both of these videos we are talking about different issues and also different subjects. And also we uploaded in our platform. That's why youth and students get the opportunity to learn from home. So this is one kind of thing that we are actually doing something to recover this problem. Another thing is that sorry, Pallawish, because as you mentioned that I just have 5 minutes to talk about like this. But I want to share something more to the like that audience, because all of you are very famous and very popular for your own site and own houses. So I am very excited to that, because as I connected in a Blazes platform, so I think that it is one kind of best opportunity for me to share something to the international to in front of international youth. I got the chance to in my career life. I also completed my graduations, and I got the chance to visit 4 countries with 4 scholarships. And I also last time I also got the scholarship to visit London from British Council Bangladesh. And Pallawish, one of my friend from Indonesia, one of my friend from Thailand, we are taking an initiative, and we also created a platform. Its name is Asia Pacific Forum. Here we are focusing on climate issues. Pallawish is the main, and also he. We are sharing everything each others. This is one kind of learning sectors also. Here we get so many experiences and also share something to the others participants, and also we can also learn from others youth. Because if I say my side that I'm focusing on climate issues, like its number of 13 SDG goals, so some youth are focusing on another goals. So if we are connected in a platform, we can get the knowledge from each participant that they all are focusing on every sectors. So I believe that youth are doing many things at this pandemic time, and we also want to do many things. If here I have seen that lots of honorable guests from international platform, I would like to request everyone that please give the opportunity to the youth in every sectors, because youth really want to do something for their society, for communities, for nations, for the youth, and also all over the countries like that. So Pallawish, I think that I already shared something to you and also all of audience, that you mentioned some points, and I also keep in touch this point, and also sharing one of my experiences what we are doing actually. So thank you, Pallawish, for giving me the chance to say something in front of this audience. Thank you, Pallawish. Now I'm back to Pallawish.
Thank you very much, Omar. That was a very strong, very intense feeling that we get while you were speaking about Bangladesh and talking about youths, human rights, gender violence, inequality. A very strong message going out to everyone, all the participants, and plus we will be having this session live. Uploading it on YouTube as well as on Facebook page, and I think it's a very strong message coming from your side, because you are such an experienced youth, and having all these scholarships and working uh, all these different regions, and plus having all these SDG goals, working towards it. It's a very strong message. Thank you very much, Omar, for joining us. Guys, thank you for joining us. We will be going to our Q&A session now. If you have any questions to speakers, please, you may ask now. You can unmute yourself. If you are not comfortable, you can actually type your message as well to whoever you want to direct that message to. So let's begin.
Pallawish, would you, if you don't mind, can I share something about human rights?
Yes, sure, Omar.
Thank you, Pallawish, for giving me the chance another time. So I would like to share something about human rights issues, because as all of you know that in Cox's Bazar district of Bangladesh, more than 10 lakh Rohingya refugees peoples in there. So we people are actually have seen that in 2017 to still now there are in Cox's Bazar district. We also have more than 20 lakh peoples in host community. including 10 lakh also Rohingya refugees peoples. That means we are now 30 lakh Rohingya refugees and also host communities peoples. Both of are living together like that. They just have only few distance from each other. So here we have seen that lots of noise. Sometimes they all are cutting their oats, and also they are needed. Sometimes they are cutting trees to their regular activities, and also doing something like that. So I want to say something to all of you, that we need to raise the voices about Rohingya crisis in Bangladesh, because as we are human beings, as we are living in a living also own countries, and also we are the best, and we can speak something like that Rohingya crisis issues in Bangladesh. It's one kind of human rights issues, because they don't have access to education, they don't get access food, they don't get access anything. They lost everything, and they migrated from Myanmar to Bangladesh. We need to go. We need to raise more awareness and raise awareness activities to human rights issues like that. It's all about Rohingya crisis issues in Bangladesh. I would like to request to all of you that please raise your voices on platform about Rohingya crisis in Bangladesh, because as we are populated country, one thing is that, another thing is that is there don't have access ground, don't have access areas, that why they are living, because day by day the people are increasing. So one day we'll survive that, and we also survive that. We need to make ensure their rights, and we need to make a strong policy, and also raise strong voices to repatriate Rohingya refugees from Bangladesh to Myanmar. Thank you for.
Thank you very much, Omar. We have a hand raised. Uh, Mr. Darin. Yes. We have Darin from Ecuador. I guess you raised your hand.
Yeah, Pallawish, thank you for this opportunity. Like a CEO of Youth for Climate Action, I a partner with Pallawish, and I appreciate this space of this great meeting of the human rights with great with the great defenders of these incredible initiatives around the world. And I just want to say you thank you so much, Omar. Thank you so much, Nabeen, and all the people that right now are available to fight against this injustice in Asia, because we suffered the same in South America, we suffered the same in the rest of the Caribbean countries, and we understand your pain, your effort in these initiatives, and thank you so much. As a CEO of the Youth for Climate Action, a partner of Pallawish in this initiative, I appreciate the support of Pallawish as a founder of this incredible organization, and thank you.
Thank you, Darin. That was a very lovely speech from your side. Do we have any questions? Please feel free to put down your questions if you have any. You can raise your hand.
Sorry, Pallawish, if I may. Akuila again.
Yes, Mr. Akuila.
Yeah, I just saw a question that was also raised, and also Brian has helped to discuss on the right to food during the crisis situation. As I mentioned also before, that different countries by right have different issues to address at this moment in time. Here in the Pacific, for those of you who are there from the other side of the world, the issue of direct COVID related positiveness has now increased in Fiji. We only have 4 deaths by total number. Not a lot of the small island countries here in the Pacific, 0 numbers in terms of death from a COVID-19 situation. Saying that, but we also saying that I want us to also relate that here in the Pacific, because of our small island country states, one of the major issue is on socio-economic impact. UN through the regional office, and I know Brian would understand that we did also a socio-economic impact assessment for that regard. One of the reasons I wanted to share on the right to food, and I know that Brian had also answered that, you know, when it comes to issues, technical issues of food, FAO is the organization, but that looks after the agriculture sector, food, nutritious part of food, even linking it to food security. But I just wanted to raise, Naveen mentioned about the youth engagement, which is very important. And I want to raise, even at this juncture, before I move into some of the concrete examples, a UN youth strategy, or the 2030 agenda. The SDG has been contextualized in the youth UN youth strategy, where we have about 5 thematic areas there. You know, engagement and participation in terms of advocacy, informed and healthy foundation, the issues of economic empowerment, youth and human rights, and peace resilient, where climate change come in, where Omar has discussed well on the issues of climate change. I'll come back to climate change because this is also a prevailing issue in the Pacific. But I wanted to raise even on food security and also mobilization of youth. Through the International Youth Day last year, the theme was on youth engagement for global action. For this, we were able to partner with the University of the South Pacific, one of the powerhouse university which had academic researchers. I was happy that Brian from UNFPA was part of it, UNICEF. So, you know, the call today was also a call for partnership. This is where all the UN agencies and government states, so for example, the Ministry of Youth came to also share on how they are mobilizing youth, or even the Ministry of Agriculture came to share on how they are addressing issues of food security. I was happy that even the outcome of that engagement, we saw that youth wanted to value their own traditional ways. They wanted to value diligence, cooperation, and self-help. A part of the outcome statement too was the encouragement of digital platform to be used for communication. The third outcome was on localizing business thinking and the application through establishment of young entrepreneurs to create employment, to solve the socio-economic problem that is happening from the countries in the country. Here you will see that the Butter for Better Fiji, for example, reached BBC News, where people started to use the Butter system using the online platform, Facebook platform, to start to butter people who had food, then buttered or exchange with those who had other things that they need. This was one of the critical example which I mentioned, which reached the BBC News, whereby people mobilized locally, started to share in trying to solve the situation that they were in. The other outcome was on revitalization of traditional and local ecological knowledge. farming practices, preservation of food, and also, looking at it from a climate change point of view, but also, in the issues of food security in crisis situation. And of course, there were youth also recommended, cross-cutting issues of research, innovation, policy, and partnership for that matter. Also, while discussing this, and I still have the time, I think at this stage, I think communication, these words are coming into my mind. Communication, collaboration, and partnership is very important. Collaboration, you need to collaborate. Here in the Pacific, we call them the gatekeepers in the community. These are regulators in the community. These are religious leaders. These are chiefs in the community. These are leaders in the community, women leaders, youth leaders, community leaders. They are the ones that you need to collaborate with. On the other hand, you need to partner. You need to partner with organization. You need to partner. I saw Brian mention that, we need to reach out to other UN agencies or state in order for us to partner and see how best we could solve the problem that are applicable to our individual countries. And of course, the other C is on communication. We need to communicate. We need to different ways of communicating, dialogue, youth voices. But then I also wanted to raise on climate change. Last year, we did a regional human rights and climate change workshop. And this was a partnership with Alliance for Future Generation, a youth-led organization. The reason why we did this, and I know Brian can explain more on this, because the UN Youth Strategy explains quite clearly that it is not only we are doing programs for youth, we're not only doing programs with youth, but we are doing programs by youth. Youth are taking the lead, just like this afternoon when we were discussing with Pallawish. Youth need to come onto the platform. Last year, during our human rights and climate change, and I'm very happy that Brian also, you will hear that I keep on saying Brian's name. This shows the partnership that we tend to build in order for us to solve the situation, the development situation, in crisis situation, and other situation that we are going through. Here in the Pacific, we already have the climate change issues, disproportionate issues of climate change, the right to food, the right to clean drinking water, and all this. And then the COVID-19 situation has just added extra burden into that. So if it's an extra burden, that means extra communication needs to be happening, extra coordination needs to be happening, extra collaboration needs to be happening, and also extra partnership needs to be happening. Yeah, back to you, Pallawish.
Thank you very much, Akuila. That was very moderated dialogue that you have said regarding the Pacifics, what is actually happening in the Pacific. For example, we islanders, we are going through climate change each and every day, and we are seeing climate change, what is happening to our country, to our nation, to our islands. Thank you very much, Akuila, for that beautiful words. Guys, the participants, if you have any questions, please, if you could put in your message or raise your hand, we will unmute you, and you can directly ask questions to the speakers. I guess we don't have any questions further to be asked. Going through the conclusion part, some of the points that we have noted and that has been covered in this session are human rights and SDGs, 6 key human rights messages. For example, protecting of livelihood, no place for discrimination, inclusive participation, the threat is the virus, not the people. Recover together, build back better. We have working together, we can work in isolation. Communication, and then we have SDG 17, 7 points rather to be considered, right at the core of sustainable development, right in the time of crisis. Gender equality, which is the most important issue, which is the most important SDG goal that we need to focus on at this point in time. Then we have public participation and civic space, the right of future generation, collective actions. We have points what COVID-19 has done sexually talking. We have points such as 15 to 19 years old have serious health problems. 66% in South Asia, young people are mostly affected, which is very true. Youths, young people, they are very much affected. They're mostly affected. We have drugs issues that cannot be assessed through COVID. Um, we have family plannings with 8.1% in India. We have all these ratios. If you have any questions regarding this, please you can reach out to Mr. Brian on. We have his email address in our chat. Please reach out to him for this fact and figures. You can reach out to Mr. Akuila as well for any clarification whenever you're talking about human rights, since he is the human rights officer. If you have any clarification regarding human rights and how climate and youths are involved in it, please feel free to reach out to them by email. Then we have people face caste, racism, rape in the country for India. Then we have 16.6% of Indian population that have been kept away, or rather swept away, I could say. The right against labor, untouchable, how COVID has been affected untouchables. 45% of believes family didn't receive the healthcare, which food, food which they have entitled of. They have been killed and raped. Some of the issues, some of the points, we will be highlighting these points on our social media page. We will be making a brief report on our today's session, based on our today's session, and it will be available for general public as well to access these reports. We have a conclusion as we need youths to be part of, we need youths to be part from rural areas who can represent, and we need to digitalize the network, the communication sector, and the solutions to misinformation. Proper organized by providing awareness. We have, as a youth, as a young people, we need to speak up the problem. We don't need to stay back. We need to express what we feel because our voices need to be heard. That is what we think. That is the reason we have act now and act together. And then we have support of young generation. Support of young generation. Today's young generation, they need to be supported in each and every aspect of their of the topics that they want. They are having human rights, SDGs, climate change. As I mentioned, we are facing climate change each and every day as islanders, and we need to work on. We need to act now and act together. Please, we have Naveen from India, from New Delhi. His contact is also in the chat. If you please, if you have any questions, feel free to ask, email them with questions, and they will respond directly. Thank you very much, guys, for tuning in, and looking forward. We have our email address also in the chat box. Please feel free to email us if you have any questions, and we will be coming back with another event next week, which will be based for Nepal, that is forestry and environment. Since we are a virtual organization, a youth led organization, we will be doing a lot of events, we will be doing a lot of projects. And if you want to be part of this, if you want to be involved with these projects, please feel free, email us, we'll get back to you. And thank you very much, guys. We have Darren He is the co-founder for Youth for Climate Action Project, as he has expressed his great gratitude for whatever we have done, whatever the organization has been doing. And it is an sincerely a great opportunity for me letting you guys know that Youth for Climate Action Project, our organization has reached out to 54 countries so far. Our organization, Y4CAP, has been established in 54 countries. 54 countries. Youths need to play active role to disregard PPE properly after use in this COVID. Please, if you are using private protective equipments, you need to dispose it in a correct manner, because using face masks and throwing it and polluting the environment, that is a major cause during this COVID-19, because there's a lot of viruses that is spreading, and we have a new variant, and there's lot of diseases coming up. Please act responsibly. That's a key message from our organization. Act responsibly, be safe, listen to all instructions, and make sure we see you next time with a great and enthusiastic event that you can be part of, and we'll let you know more on our social media page. Please follow us and stay tuned. Thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you very much. Goodbye, everyone. Stay safe.
Thank you very much. Goodbye. See you back again.
Requesting if
Thank you. Thank you, everybody.
if we could maybe open your video, and maybe we could take a screenshot, selfie type, so we can use it in our report as well.
Ah, okay. You want to smile?
Let's since we are talking about human rights, and Myanmar is going through human rights very severely this year and last year, why not we use their signal, using the three scouts sign, to represent and to have a peace justice for Myanmar regarding human rights.
If it's scouts, then it's supposed to be left hand.
Sorry. Yes. Okay, since there's some privacy issue as well with the videos, thank you guys, and got it. Thank you. Thank you guys for joining in, and
Thank
we'll
you.
see you soon.
Bye.
Thank you.